So let me introduce Stephanie Pezolis, who's helping me out as one of the valued members of the Nostos team. I'm Ronda, of course, and with us also are Mary Kardaras and Olympia Anastasopoulou. We represent the team of Nostos for Greek adoptees. So the idea was that as soon as the law was published, and it became official on the 2nd of May, that we would do some work on making it intelligible for people. And this slide presentation needs to do just that. So not only do we translate it in English, which of course we need, but we also boil it down to the kind of bullet points that apply to your case. So the idea then is that we go through the slide presentation, that I'm recording it. We will be joined by a few people from the Ministry of the Interior, and that at the very end, there would be time left for questions, or at least an invitation for you to send us your questions so we can forward those to the contacts at the Ministry of the Interior. Now, mind you, this is all very new, and this is a work in progress. So I also need the input from the people at the ministry to make sure that we don't disseminate faulty information. So let me just thank the people of the ministry who've indicated that they want to be with us. And I want to thank Mr. Athanasios Balerbas, Mr. Dimitris Karnavos, Mrs. Katerina Uli, Katerina Georguntsou, and Kalia Ikonomou. I'm not sure if they can all make it, but at least they will be sharing the recording, and we get the bugs out of this presentation by the time we distribute it more widely. So rest assured, this won't be taking too long. I hope to wrap this up in about 40 minutes. There will be a total of only 12 slides, certainly not an overload. And you can rest assured that only a few slides in the end apply to your scenario. So this cannot be too overwhelming, right? Okay, then. Okay. So let me first state what applies to everyone. What is the key idea behind this new law? To get to step number 3, issuing your Greek passport, you need to follow a 3-step process. You need to register as a Greek citizen on what the Greeks call the citizen list, the dimotologia. I give you the Greek words, so if ever you needed them, you can at least point to the Greek words. And parallel to that process, you open your own family portion. And the Greeks call that a merida. And you do that at the municipality office. More specifics later. Step number 2 is then that you issue your Greek taftotita, your ID card. And with that ID card, you issue your Greek passport. So this is the 3-step process that, no matter what you do, applies to everyone. You can do that either in Greece, or you can do it at your nearest Greek consulate. I know that a few people from Australia are joining, but you will see that this presentation actually has more bearing for people in the US, but we don't want to exclude you. One moment. So, the new law presents 4 different scenarios. So each one of you will fall under a particular set of circumstances. And I spell them out in Greek, so you can see what it looks like, and I translate them in hopefully readable English for you on the other side of the slide. I want to immediately tell you that about 80% of the people fall under B and C. A and D are very uncommon. In fact, D is so uncommon that I've never even met a case, and that makes that I won't even be discussing it. It would mean that you're not even registered anywhere, which, if you went abroad, was pretty much impossible. So I'm going to focus on A, B, and C, reiterating that B and C are the common ones, and that 80% of you fall under B and C. So, first scenario. You are an adopted child who was registered at birth as a member of the family portion. The set of circumstances in which this would happen would normally be your mother and father were married. Maybe one became a widow or a widower. You stayed with them for a certain amount of time, some people even up till age 9 or 10. So you were always a Greek citizen for those years. You were normally registered, a totally legitimate child. And then the adoption happened. And that adoption would have caused your name to be deleted from the family portion. And until now, that deletion was a huge obstacle. But in the new law, that deletion will be recognized as proof that you were once registered on the family portion. So a deletion even is evidence in your favor. Again, this applies to very few people because most of you were not members of a family in which the couple was married. But I know of at least one mother-son pair to whom this applies. So you may want to watch carefully then what you do when you fall under this scenario. And like I said, I will be going through every scenario bit by bit. If you want to make pictures of the slides that apply to you, you're of course most welcome to do so. So here is still that adopted child that was registered as a member of the family portion in your normal legitimate family. To now go and register as a citizen, you need your certified copy of your original Greek family portion, even if that shows your deletion. You need your current US passport, and because all foreign documents that you bring to Greece have to be officially translated and certified, that also applies to the US passport. You need an official listing of how your current family composition works, meaning what children do you have in the US now? And you need that officially translated and certified. This is an item on which we all have a few questions, so I already have that in my list of questions, how we can all most efficiently do that. And then you need your Greek Adoption Act. Remember that we've worked long and hard on getting you that Greek Adoption Act through your immigration file and other sources, and you need that certified. Okay? So what is really key here, that Adoption Act and you have to be uncontroversially pertaining to the same person. So if you are unbaptized Papadopoulou, that makes it a little harder. But because you were part of a registered family, most likely that connection will be easily established. And then you can also submit your certified copy of your Greek birth certificate, and because many of you have it, your original Greek passport. This should be sufficient. So that's really only 4 points. If somehow that connection is not uncontroversially provable, then other documents can be adduced, can be brought in as evidence to help establish the connection between your name and the Adoption Act, but only if it's necessary. And this is then what the new law says that you can bring in as alternative evidence. And here I want to stand still for a moment and say what an absolutely radical breakthrough this is. Let me make clear that previously you were always held to a bunch of documents that sometimes you would just never have. Now, this is a list of possible documents that you can invoke if the bullet point list of 4 documents doesn't suffice. And it's a choice. It's a list of alternatives. And this can be a lot. Like if you're a man, you're registered on the male registries. Sorry, women, not applicable. This was to prepare, the army lists. You could have a Greek hospital record from when you were born, or maybe hospitalized in Greece in your early life. You could have an orphanage record, and that's quite easy to retrieve. So hooray, hooray. You could have record from a religious function, your baptism in Greece, or a synagogue if you were of Greek Jewish descent, very rare. If you went to school in Greece up to a certain age, you could have a school record. Or your adoptive parents, if they were Greek American, may have registered you at the Greek consulate. So all these things become possible evidence. And if all else fails, if all of the above fails, you can submit for additional proof that you think holds value and argue for the value of it. So this is really quite revolutionary that you have just such a choice to work with what you have and no longer be faced with obstacles of what you don't have and may never have. Now, I want you to remember this slide number 7, and I'm going to refer to it as the blue slide, right? The blue slide. Because this list of alternative evidence that you can bring will come back in the other scenarios as well. So I won't copy and paste it each time. I'm just going to refer to the blue slide, and you remember this list of alternative evidence that you can bring in. All right? Okay. Now, scenario B, remember this was the scenario that is a lot more common. You were not registered as a member of the family portion. You were most likely an illegitimate child. There is no such thing, but on paper there is. But you have the name of a birth parent. As an illegitimate child, and I use that word rather hesitatingly, you would have the name of a birth mother mostly, right? A birth mother. But we need a little more about her. This is the scenario in which they try to grant you your citizenship via a bloodline, meaning your mother was a Greek citizen, and therefore you are a Greek citizen. It suffices that one parent is a Greek citizen. But for that, we need a little more information on your mother so we can verify she's a Greek citizen, right? So you need to scan your documentation for anything that gives us more information than just her name. Is there an ID number? Is there a name of her father? Is there an address in Athens? Does it even say how old she is so we can go back to the birth date? Because remember, according to the Greek naming system, first cousins very often have the same name, right? Maria Papadopoulou will be duplicated a few times in the very large Papadopoulou family because children were named after their maternal grandmother according to their listing in the sibling row. So we need as much information on your birth mother as you can possibly get so we can establish that uncontroversial bloodline. Okay, so this is continuing scenario B. You were not registered at birth because very few illegitimate children were. However, you have something on your birth mother, mostly. So now you go and register in the municipality of your choice. This is great. This is great. And people, I know that villages are scenic and everything, but choose a big city. You make your life so much easier. The big city is also more likely to be up to date on the new law, and you wouldn't feel as if you're the first case coming through the door. So make your life simpler and go for the big city. And here's what you need. And you start recognizing some of these elements, right? You need your current US passport, translated and certified. You need your US family composition, your own children. You need a certified copy of your birth parents, just one, their registry on the citizenship list or their listing in the family portion. And you need your certified copy of the Greek Adoption Act. And again, we seek for that uncontroversial link between the paperwork and you. You bring your Greek birth certificate if you have it, and your original Greek passport, which most of you have. And if there is a birth parent's consent to the adoption, bring it too, because it's another immediate connection between you and a Greek birth mother. Now, here you may be missing some information, but that's where blue slide number 7 comes in with all the additional proof you could bring in. So blue slide number 7, all these alternative options, orphanage records, the mail registry, hospital records, school records, it applies to this scenario as well. All right? So this closes the scenario and we move on to the last one. Adoption an adoptee, scenario C, an adoptee who is a foundling, right? Applies to quite a few of you. That means you were registered. A piece of paper was issued that I call a foundling registration, even though on top of it it says birth certificate. But it is not a birth certificate, it substitutes for a birth certificate. Because if it were a real birth certificate, then we would know your mother's name and your exact date of birth and the hospital you were born. But we have none of that because you were a foundling, and most times entirely anonymous, right? Okay, this is called in Greek an ektotopedy. And you're also listed either as a foundling and ektoto, or you're listed as of unknown parents in the plural. That means the same thing. But if it says of you that you are of an unknown father, that means that at least you know your birth mother, in which case we're back to the previous scenario, and you having to find as much information as possible about your birth mother, a clear statement of her name, her father's name, ideally an address, an age, an ID number. All right. I told you there was also that scenario D of a foundling who's never even been registered. I've yet to see the first case. If you're going for adoption abroad, there has to be some registration that you exist. Otherwise, you don't even proceed through the entire process. So I'm not going to discuss D because I've yet to see it for the first time. We focus then on scenario C as our last scenario, the adoptee who is a foundling, who was at least registered as a foundling, even though we never were able to make the connection with the birth certificate. So this adoptee who's a foundling has to go and register where you were found and first registered as a foundling. So the municipality that issued your foundling record, your foundling registration, will be the municipality you return to go and register, either in person or through the consulate. For most of you, that's Patras. For some of you, that's Athens. In fewer cases, that's Thessaloniki or Iraklio or Yanina or wherever it may be. But for most of you, that is really Patras. So Patras will get to see quite a few of you, I'm thinking. So here's what you need to submit when you go to the municipality where you were registered as a foundling. Here we are again with the US passport, makes sense, with your listing of your current family composition, with your certified copy of your foundling registration, and with your certified copy of the Adoption Act. Because again, we're trying to establish an uncontroversial link between you and the Adoption Act. And then again, always bring your Greek passport. That's about as strong evidence as you can possibly have. If in need of other documentation, return back to the famous blue slide number 7. That gives you all the alternatives, which also apply here. The mail registry listing, the orphanage records, the church records, and so on and so forth. All right? Now, you will probably wonder, why is there so much emphasis on your current family composition? Well, if you get your citizenship, your descendants, your children, have only one step to prove, and that is that their mother or father was a Greek citizen. So you make it much easier for your children and grandchildren to initiate the process on their own. Every child that is older than 18 does not get your citizenship. That child has to apply on their own behalf. All right. And also, they want to know how many children you have, because as you well know, Greece has a huge demographic problem. It didn't help that they sent away 4,000 of you, but very many of you have done a lot of good work addressing the Greek demographic problem by having 2 and 4 and 6 children yourselves. So that you will be putting a dent in the Greek demographic problem. So you need some help on various things. As I already said, all documents in languages that are not Greek English, right, need to be apostilled and declared official. And then also you need to use an officially appointed Greek translator. Even if you could translate it on your own, or if you already know what it says. And you need a little help with that. And here are links to find that information. Every consulate will provide those links and will also provide a list of approved translators. There is some money involved to get this done, but you can do it on your own. And of course, you're all going to be a little patient, right? And you take this in strides and with a good sense of humor, but it gets done. It gets done. If in doubt, then where all the municipalities are and these registry offices, these offices of vital statistics, I quite recommend the book by Conidaris, which is available on Amazon, which has listings and listings of addresses and telephone numbers and websites. It's quite a gold mine if you are stuck and you know that, let's say you're going to be traveling to Patras, but you want to do as much work in advance.